What has happened in China, the fact that the human rights situation has significantly deteriorated, and it's true, it is getting worse. But hopefully that's the darkness before the dawn. And the only way that human rights will break out and democracy and freedom is the people like Bob Fu and China Aid working hand in glove with the people inside of China, especially the faith community, to promote democracy and respect for the rule of law, as Judge Carter said so well. We've seen the lack of it, and the Chinese people have experienced the lack of it for so long. You know, China Aid has, and Bob Fu in particular, as a visionary, has done so much to take the gospel of Jesus Christ and to apply it in a very tangible way, not in a politically correct way or just mouthing certain.
And I'm a big fan of Bob Fu and everybody associated with China Aid, and I appreciate the work that everybody in this room has done collectively. Many of the people in this room I've come to know over the years, and there are a lot of new faces here. But we've all come together for one reason, that is because we care deeply about human rights. And as the United States Congressman and as the United States Senator, I, along with Chris Smith and Judge Carter and Congressman Pitts and Congressman Wolf, we believe that if the United States of America stands for anything, we ought to stand out loud and foursquare for human rights. That ought to be the centerpiece of our foreign policy.
Board resolution. Whereas Dr. Fan Yafang of China has valiantly and courageously pursued the cause of religious freedom in China, though at risk of life and his own personal freedom. And whereas Dr. Tong Biao of China has valiantly and courageously pursued the cause of rule of law in China, though at risk of life and his own personal freedom. And whereas attorney Zhang Tianyong of China has valiantly and courageously pursued the causes of religious freedom and the rule of law in China, though at risk of life and his own personal freedom. And whereas the year 2012 marks the 10th anniversary of the founding of China Aid Association, an international nonprofit Christian human rights organization committed to promoting religious freedom and the rule of law in China from its headquarters office based in Midland, Texas, therefore be it resolved by the Board of Directors of China Aid Association in recognition of their extraordinary courage in pursuing the causes of religious freedom and the rule of law in China, that Dr. Fan Yafang, Dr. Tang Biao, and attorney Zhang Tianyong are recognized with China Aid Association's first annual Courage Award with an accompanying honorarium of $5,000 on this, the 24th day of July 2012.
The three courageous individuals, I wish they could be here, and they also wish to be here today with us. And unfortunately, they were all on the blacklist. They were all under travel ban. So they cannot come. And I want to call their three representatives to come up to represent them to pick up the award. Pastor Zhang Qianjin, Pastor Wang Dao, and Pastor Shi Weihan. Could you come up and to represent the three individuals? So Pastor Shi Weihan will represent the attorney Zhang Tianyong from Beijing. Attorney Zhang Tianyong is a Christian human rights lawyer, formerly of the Beijing Gaobo Longhua law firm. And during 2005 to 2006, he handled the Chen Guangcheng case, the Gao Zhisheng case, the Hu Jia case, and others. During 2008 to 2009, he handled a large number of Falun Gong cases and ethnic minority cases.
这个时候，当我眼前一片黑暗的时候，我只能听见自己的心跳，听到自己这个灵魂深处的有一个声音在问：你做的这一切都值得吗？好，翻译一下。继续坚持吗？翻译一下。
On February 19th, 2011, I was taken to a vehicle by a group of unidentified people. They covered my eyes, and 2 hours later we arrived at a place where they locked me up. When I was blindfolded, I could hear nothing but the beating of my heart. I could only hear a voice deep in my soul.
Well, thank you. I'll be very brief. Thank you for the comments, Bill. I appreciate it. Good to see you. Bob, it's good to be with you, and congratulations on the 10th anniversary. And I believe the previous speaker was one of the ones that we were scheduled to meet with when Chris and I were in Beijing just for the Olympics, who was arrested before. We had a gathering scheduled and everyone but one was arrested, and the one that was arrested, that got there was arrested, I think, the next day. And Clark Grant, our ambassador, did absolutely nothing about it, to be honest with you. And so that brings us up to this current date. The people like this individual and like the others are basically similar to Solzhenitsyn or Sharansky. They are the Solzhenitsyn and Sharansky of China.
高志生所遭受的迫害众所周知，在他5年的缓刑期间，高志生大部分时间是强迫失踪的，最长一次的失踪是1年8个月。每当高志生的大哥到北京去寻找高志生的下落，都被挡在政府所有大门口，经历了无数的训喝、辱骂和推搡，绝望的返回。
As all the cruel treatment and persecution that Gao Zhengzhen has endured, now it's
for sparing time to come to celebrate the 10th anniversary with our colleagues and supporters, legislators, and scholars, academics, and advocates and partners. Before I invite our panelists to come to make their presentations, I want to mention that we're honored to have Senator John Cornyn to come to share his thoughts with us today. And because of some logistic issues, so he said he will come at 10:30. So we will have our first panelist. As many of you are already familiar who she is, I think I will just do a short introduction of Sharon. So Sharon is the current executive director of human rights in China. She's also a professor of law emerita. Sounds a little retirement title. And a young retiree. But usually
accusations that it's foreign influence, read U.S. or more notoriously the CIA, that it's foreign influences behind the social unrest, the demonstrations, and most recently even the self-immolations by Tibetans. As a desperate gesture, they are saying it's foreign influence. On the other side of the ocean, here, U.S. think tanks and policy debates about the security and other threats presented by a rising China. In looking back, we need to recognize that this rhetoric of fear and distrust is not helpful to advancing the international human rights values that Americans and Chinese people share.
Just the economic boom that we witnessed from the United States. China is a nation where hundreds of millions of people have emerged from poverty over the past 3 decades, which is a good thing, but it's also a nation with a brutally repressive communist dictatorship, one that is usually kept very much off the radar screen. The party's control of virtually every aspect of people's lives, from big business down to the villages, is something that's virtually invisible to most Americans, but it exists. Unfortunately, China is a nation where terrible human rights abuses such as forced abortions occur on a regular basis. A nation where government officials harvest the organs of political prisoners. A nation where Christians and other religious minorities are persecuted for their religious beliefs and for exercising their God-given freedom.
Because 10 years ago, I spent the entire summer in China. gathering material for a book that was released in 2003 called Jesus in Beijing. And it's a real sea change today from the situation in 2002. Let me give you an example. Things were really quite relaxed. There weren't a lot of significant names in the faith community.
中国这套制度，我觉得刚才David Ackerman他探讨了很多这种现象，包括先人。其实他们探讨这些现象都是从中国的媒体和报刊杂志、电视台上获得的。
Just now, Dr. Ackerman and Sharon Tang has discussed a lot of phenomena happening in China recently, and I believe they've had the information from Chinese media, newspaper and TV.
但是我们作为一个法律工作者，作为一个律师，我们从中国的社会现实当中所感受到的是，最强烈的现象是这么一种，那就是在法律所宣布的权利和自由，为什么在中国的社会生活中都得不到落实？
But as a person living in China, as a lawyer who's living the reality of China every day, the strongest feeling I get is how come we have all the rules and laws founded, but they are not realized in real life.
那么这其中的原因是什么？作为一个中国公民，特别是一个和平的落野，我们该怎么样做？在这种现实环境下，那么未来中国我们有什么展望？
Okay, so what they called 911 actually reported the abuse to a higher level in the police bureau, and all the higher level officials showed up at the police station as well.
但是他们没有人愿意去管。
But nobody intervened.
这些警察威胁我的弟弟，给我写了一个这个条子，写了一个纸条，上面写着，就是说我弟弟身上的伤是他自己摔的，不是警察打的。
And actually, those police who physically abused my brother, they wrote a note saying, "But all the wounds on my brother's body was inflicted by himself. They fell down on the ground. They had nothing to do with us."
他威胁我的弟弟，如果你不签字，你的哥哥在我们手中，我们就整死他。
If they gave the note to the brother and saying, "Sign your name on it. If you do not, we're gonna kill your brother."
那我弟弟没有办法在上面摁了手印。
So my brother had no choice but to actually put his fingerprints.
他是为了我。
To protect his own.
然后后来回家以后，发现他的肾失去。
Peter Loback, who is the president of the Providence Forum, and also the current president of Westminster Theological Seminary. It's my seminary. I'm so glad that you come here to make congratulatory remarks.
Well, if Westminster is Bao Fu Seminary, Bao Fu is Westminster's favorite Chinese religious liberty activist. In fact, he's the greatest in the world, and we're really grateful.
You know, the scriptures in Hebrews chapter 11, the hall of the heroes, if you will, talks about those who were persecuted, imprisoned, some put to death, placed in the mouth of lions, sawed asunder, and it talks about those people in verse 38 and categorizes them this way: of whom the world was not worthy. These believers who are suffering persecution, for which you advocate, for which you work, are my heroes. I remember a dozen years ago when you brought Pastor Shu and the Heavenly Man and several of them to my
You know, there's a lot of jokes made about congressmen, but it's always somebody else's congressman. It's never your own. Your own's all right. Well, he's not one of my congressmen, but this guy's all right. Resolution. Whereas Congressman Chris Smith of the United States House of Representatives has passionately and with integrity pursued the cause of human rights and religious freedom in China. And whereas Congressman Frank Wolf of the United States House of Representatives has passionately and with integrity pursued the cause of human rights and religious freedom in China. And whereas Congressman James McGovern of the United States House of Representatives has passionately with integrity pursued the cause of human rights and religious freedom in China. And whereas the year 2012 marks the 10th anniversary of the founding of China Aid Association, an international nonprofit Christian human rights organization committed to promoting religious freedom and the rule of law in China from its headquarters office in the great state of Texas. Therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Directors of China Aid Association in recognition of their extraordinary efforts to defend the cause of religious freedom and the rule of law in China, that Congressman Smith, Wolf, and McGovern are recognized with China Aid Association's first annual Defender Award on this, the 24th day of July, 2012.
Thank you.